Response video to the modern mystic, and it's a walk and talk. Ha ha. Yeah, if I can be a little bit irritating, I will enjoy it. Brain, the brain occupying my skull, will project a consciousness phenomenon, and inside that phenomenon there will be enjoyment. Yes, at the prospect of being an irritant to a yob. And yes, you're acting like a yob. I mean, really. Yeah, playing the clip once would have been fine. You know, playing it 18 times is just a waste of my fucking time. Thank you very much. A deliberate, willful waste. It's not even an accident of personality, because you have to sit there in the video editor and do it. Unlike this, where I'm walking and talking. I can get lost in a bit of ramble. And I can waste people's time inadvertently. Not deliberately and willfully, by programmed agenda. The agenda of your yob program. So whatever. So let's understand context. You people who aren't following along. I'm attempting on the internet to explain to people how there's a deterministic universe. We're caught up in a evolution mechanism, a replicating DNA molecule. We have this scheming brain that has been created by evolution. It creates a phenomenon of consciousness which allows it to project this phenomenon of a personal interest, a sensation machine that motivates the organism, that propels it, that obliges it to do things. And then it has a intelligence, a modeling function that enables it to scheme its way to gain its satisfaction of desires. And the desires are basic: maintain the body and maintain the reproductivity, the agenda of the DNA. And that's basically the design. My argument to the human race is they have to understand this mechanism as they're being completely duped by it, owned by it, borged by this DNA agenda. This molecule is essentially telling them what is or is not valuable, and that they have to rise above that and understand that their intelligence, the best part of them, the thinking mind, the thinking part of the projection, the part that understands concepts and ideas and circumstantial reality, they've got to allow that program. They've got to validate that program with the truth statement in their brain, understanding the utilitarian idea that their brain's got to work for all brains. It's got to work for all consciousnesses. This idea of a selfish interest is nonsense and bullshit. Your pain is not more important than somebody else's pain. Likewise, your gain isn't better than somebody else's gain. It's all bullshit. We've got to try to create the overall for all conscious entities. Consciousness is the game. The game is not these individual players. And the mystic's perspective is that he wants to convey an understanding that there is no you. There is no little person feeling the pain inside of you. We're going to dissect right past the need to even get involved in a worry, about whether or not conscious entities are comfortable or uncomfortable, because we're just going to watch them and say they're mattering, or something like that. I think it's an insidiously evil, by its nature, description of reality. The fact that there is no little man does not mean there is no value in consciousness. It does not prove the non-existence of consciousness as a meaningful phenomenon. The fact that we can't focus a camera on it, like a little quanta, like a cartoon, like we can't make matter into some little thing with a personality that's mattering. Obviously, it's an arrangement that creates us. You can almost compare this to the biological circumstance, where in the class of living thing, you have single cells that are doing an individual function, and then you have colonies of cells, which human beings are. So they're colonies of living things. And through that arrangement, inside a brain, this phenomenon of an awareness is created. It's a machine. It's functioning at its root level, not much different than a computer, in the fact that it's basically wires and reflexes, wires made into reflexes, terminal electrical impulses that cascade through this conduit of our brain. But unlike a computer, we do have a coherent consciousness that makes us an individual sensing organ. That's collecting energy from the environment, remaking it into a conscious projection. What I'm seeing right now, I said this, but I was going to say it again. What I'm seeing right now, I'm not really seeing. I'm not. Okay? I mean, the light comes into my eyes, almost like a camera, but that's when the camera stops. The vision in my head is created by my brain in a separate region of my brain, through the function of that brain. And it's an illusion. Even though I can touch it and feel it and interact with it, it's an illusion that I'm interacting with in my head. And it's an important distinction. And like I said, the mystic is taking that distinction and perverting it into some sort of statement that therefore it's nothing. Because it doesn't have a material component that you can pluck out of me, like a rock. I can pick up this one rock. Let's say this earth was consciousness or a brain. And I pull out, now those are going to be lovely. They will be shortly. Oh, there they are. Okay. Yeah, the camera's pointing down a bit, I believe. Well, anyway, I'm not in the screen. So I pull out this rock out of the consciousness, and I say, there, show me how it's suffering. Show me. It's not suffering. Well, that's not the point is, you're not going to find a piece of it that's suffering. The suffering is a manifestation of its function, of the coalescing of the whole. And if it didn't coalesce that way, it wouldn't do what it's doing. It's like, for example, matter and gravity. How spatially apart would I have to pull the Earth to break its gravity, the gravity of its bits? So if I just slowly picked up all the pieces and put them further and further out into space, separated them all by a distance, would the overall gravity be the same, even though the Earth was twice as big, but full of empty space? If I made it 5 times as big, 10 times as big, there's a point where the gravity would be diluted over all the pieces, and it still would have gravity as a whole, but it's the distance away from the furthest distance away any two pieces would have increased beyond what was the original gravity of the planet. So it's the effectiveness of the gravity would have changed. It would have been diluted over space. And consciousness is a similar phenomenon, I guess I would argue, is that there might likely be a constituent component that enables us to ouch. That there might be ouch in the universe in the form of electrical spark or impulse. That every bit of that might produce something called, not good. And that when it's arranged, compacted, it creates a new kind of phenomenon. Not new, but a magnification of the phenomenon through the condensing of the matter, the efficiency of its arrangement, the elimination of the space creates a potential for focusing, a lasering. Lasers might even be a good example. A phenomenon created through particular arrangements, and those phenomenon create the phenomenon are created by that arrangement, and they're unique's the wrong word, but they have particular properties, and that's what we have. We have a property when our brain is conscious, when the blood pressure is correct and everything's, the hormones are correct and the chemistry is correct, it's going to create this awareness thing. And all I have to do is cut off a couple of those electrical pathways, and the whole thing is gone. The whole illusion is no longer projected. There's no longer a welfare. There's no longer a pain, a misery, a joy, a pleasure, a desire, a motivating feeling or sensation. It's turned off. And so it really has to do with a particular kind of function. And when it's just like a car engine, there's a difference between when it's on and when it's off. And a different thing is happening. Sound has created all kinds of things to change because it's on. The onness creates a phenomenon. And when we're on, when our consciousness is on, there's a real phenomenon here. And these people, I'll call them these people, I just, again, they have this perception, this is basically the core of their argument, is that no worries, in a sense, because, it's all an illusion. So therefore it doesn't really exist. I think it's kind of nonsense. I think it's as nonsensical as denying the existence of gravity or magnetism. These are forces that are created, and they likely have constituent pieces. We're obviously not capable of detecting those yet, and our consciousness has constituent pieces, and we just don't know them yet, fully understand them. So, no comment. Hey, pup. So we're going to have to wait until we have more information to answer definitively. But again, we're not going to find a little man or a little woman, that's going to endure when we're suffering, that they're going to be somewhere inside our brain, cowering and suffering. Suffering is a projection into consciousness. Like everything else I'm experiencing right now, it's a projection. My brain projects it into the domain, the dimension, the conscious dimension. But it's certainly experienced because of the biology. It's experienced as an individual event. There's just no doubt about it that the screen and projector has a limited, it's not public. It's a private container inside this body, inside this brain. This brain's creating it. And it's not leaking anywhere else. It's not a drive-in movie. It's a private theater. Let's see what else. So anyway, so we're just fighting over words. I mean, I did say in my video, why don't just repeat the part where I said ask a stupid question, because I think it's a stupid question. What is suffering? It's not the point. We know consciousness is where suffering is taking place. to argue that my suffering, my consciousness, doesn't have a material location, that I'm not going to find an actual screen and an actual projector inside my brain, is a given. And if that's going to be a non-starter for a conversation about brain function, then it's stupid. Look, I would like people to understand when they say I, that they really mean this brain. Okay? Their brain is doing something. I think that's all they need to do. Understand that when you say my, or me, or I, you're really just talking about a phenomenon created by your brain. I've repeatedly said that. I think that would be great. But for you to argue that I've got to, every single time, and replace those simple little one or two letter words with the collection of matter identifiable as my brain, as this brain inside this cranium, again, why can't I call this body a me? It's identifiable, just like that rock. Why can't I have the same rights as that rock? Okay? I mean, it's just kind of bullshit. It's taken to a preposterous and idiotic extreme. It's a kind of perverse woo-woo fundamentalism that serves no purpose. Again, the point is to recognize that our brain is a functioning machine based on programming, cause and effect universe. Billions of years of a deterministic interaction have elevated it to whatever it's acquired. It's acquired through that process. Billions and billions of years of matter coalescing, sticking to itself in survivable arrangements that were reproducible through a DNA molecule. I'm not going to do that in every sentence in replacing my, me, or I. And I think your mocking videos to me is just incredibly rude. Because I do make an effort to say me brain or this brain. I have made these statements repeatedly. Why don't you repeat how many times I've said this over and over and over? That consciousness is an illusion. But instead, you just play this little crappy game. And, yeah, it's very yobbish. Yeah, so whatever. I mean, I could play that game, but I really don't like editing people's content. Because once you start, there's no end to it. It just becomes a buffoon fest. And you really should be aware of that. That's kind of a place you really don't want to go. You do it once to make the point. All right? And I don't even think you made the point. I think you know it. I think you know that the average viewer is not even going to understand the point you were making in that video. And they're just going to think you're doing an I gotcha. And I know you're doing more than that. You're just pointing out the distinction between two statements. One is good and one is not good. And so what? Again, you want me to write it down? I'll write it down. Is that what it really comes down to? I have to write down a definition of what I is, and then we have to write that in stone somewhere? Why don't you do that? Yeah, but I don't mind doing it. So anyway, I don't even know if I'm on the screen. This lens is a little bit off. But whatever, doesn't matter. Till next time. But, yeah, fuck that. Fuck that shit. Whoa, okay, yeah, sorry. Didn't beep. Didn't know it was recording. Anyway, so a little extra, a little add-on. Just to make sure of context, just to make sure I didn't imply something that was wrong to imply. Look, the modern mystic's in this conversation in a very who cares kind of manner. It's interesting until it's not interesting, and that's it. That's how he lives his life, whatever. People are entitled to that. I'm in it because, yeah, my brain calculates that this is important. Not just a little bit important, like massively, hugely, gigantically important. that waste will incur, and waste is obnoxious, especially on this kind of level, like literally millions, hundreds of millions of years of waste. The stakes are hugely high in terms of what the human race does. The course, the action, it will decide. Gigantic, humongous, tons of wasted conscious experience. It's important to me. Further, on the philosophical issue itself, is this challenge through the conversation of let's describe what a brain is doing. This element of what a brain is doing, which is the theater of the feedback loop, the mechanism that creates this harmable thing. That's how the evolution made it. Was it made something harmable, precious, and then create a scheming machine to protect the precious. Like the Rings movies, the precious. And that's really what's going on in terms of our biology and how the brain has been designed by evolution to function by creating this illusion of a harmable. Now I'm arguing that in the process of creating that illusion, it created something incredibly real. Something so real that it's the only thing in the entire universe that has any meaning, any substance, any meaning gravity, as I put it. Value gravity. There. The only thing that has value gravity is this illusion taking place inside my brain right now. This brain. My brain, this brain. Isn't that the same thing? The brain inside this body. I can't say my brain. I don't know. Anyway. So, me brain. To further, to contextualize, the real question placed in front of me, the obstacle, the thing I'm trying to accomplish through parts of this conversation, is to try to explain how this non-material entity of consciousness, how it exists in this other dimension, I'm calling it, of value, the value dimension, but how it even exists in any dimension. How consciousness, even though it's not a material projection, it's an immaterial projection, it's a consequence of arrangement, a phenomenon, a property of electromagnetic function, much like a transformer maybe. It's given off by our brain function, manifested through just arrangements of matter and the movement of matter. Complicated, no doubt about it. But, it's a hard question. So this is the hard question. When they use this, I hate this. People steal slogans. It's like somebody stole my Atheism 2.0 and turned it into fluffy pink pussyism. It's just so irritating. I wanted 2.0 atheism into the hard realities, and these people have stolen the word. So anyway, the hard problem of consciousness is not explaining why we're conscious, because that can be explained as part of the biological function. That there was an advantage for the biology to do it this way, where it creates the harmable. And it just doesn't run programs. It creates the illusion of it creates a reaction inside your brain that creates the illusion, and then it further reacts to the illusion that it created. So it reacts twice to the same reality, and by reacting twice, it reacts almost an infinite number of times, because once you start reacting to your own actions, you create a feedback loop that would be theoretically infinite, But obviously there's always a resolution terminator. But that might be what consciousness is. That might be what sensation is. And that might be what the ouch is going to that furthest point of the recycling of the feedback. So like when sound feeds back through a speaker on a microphone, through the speaker, you get that out of control oscillation. It keeps increasing the frequency, and you get that horrific squeal. Well, the limitation on that squeal has to do with the hardware. So there'd be a limitation, theoretically, for our brain's feedback loop. And then when it reaches that limitation is when the squeal might take place that we feel as whether it's pain or whether it's ugh. Those are basically made out of the same thing, which is a jabbing of consciousness, a poking of the consciousness. Anyway, so the problem was the hard problem that me and Nick are dealing with, or Nick is, playing with as a hobby, like poking a stick at a bug or something, is, how do you put into a descriptive set of words the idea of explaining consciousness to the unconscious, an unconscious intelligence, if it was possible to have one. How would you explain what it is to feel? How would you explain ouch or ugh or anything that we're perceptually perceiving? Because presumably something that's not conscious but capable of conversation would have some knowledge base, but wouldn't be a knowledge base gleaned through experience, a conscious experience. So anyway, yeah, so if it's not going to be, yeah, whatever. Chick. She didn't smile at me, though. Rather rude. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, she's a yob. She didn't offer to have sex with me. What a fucking yob. Yeah, goddamn bitch. How dare she not offer? Anyway, where was I? I'm distracted. This brain is distractible by images of pussy and tit. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Alright, so anyway, the point is here I am with this big problem of having to explain what it is to feel. As if you can put that into words. Like, how would I explain it to something that never had it? Like, say you have never had an orgasm. How do I explain one? Say you never, but you had other feelings. So that's always the advantage. If you want to explain an orgasm, like to a woman, something that never had one, you have to use some kind of dopey common experience like, well, it's like a sneeze times 53,641. All right, 48,000. All right, 4,000. All right, times 72. That's, so it's doable because you have a common reference. But presuming there's no common reference, how do you just make it up out of matter? How do you both know what a tree is? Oh, this is bark. It's lumpy. It's this, is that. How do I take that information and convert that into an explanation of, ooh, I'm all tingly inside. How do I do that? So yeah, that's my burden. I gotta work on that one. But part of me says it's all just theoretical stuff. It's nice to know, but this isn't really important. I mean, the important issue is there's a bunch of human beings on this planet have no clue what the fuck they're doing here. They don't understand shit about reality. And they're driving the fucking bus. They don't know how to drive, and they're driving the bus. They're flying the fucking plane, It's got billions and billions and billions of sentient creatures on it, and they don't know how to fucking fly. That seems a little bit more important. But this theoretical stuff is also interesting to the mind, this mind. So I will preoccupy myself with it occasionally in these conversations. But leave us not make a mistake. I do not think this fucking I, me bullshit means anything. It's really not very fucking important in the scheme of things. Relative to the billions of sentience wasted suffering. Yeah, arguments about, well, you said I again. You're supposed to say the brain occupied inside your skull, but you're not supposed to say your, so it has to be the brain possessed within the skull that is identified as you commonly. You know, fuck this. Fuck it. Shit. I mean, once you apply just a little bit of rational context to this conversation, you do realize this is, what are we talking about? It's almost like the economic discussions. I mean, all this talk about the banks and the Federal Reserve and the interest rate and keeping the dollar strong and all this crap doesn't have shit to do with the fact that there's 796 IOUs on one fucking piece of pie. And that isn't going to work in the long run. That some of those IOUs have to be turned into shit, or else you have to find some kind of incredibly productive worker to create all the labor necessary, to create all the value necessary to pay off all those fucking IOUs. And when you consider that the federal government hasn't managed to pay a single piece of debt off in 100 years, or 80, yeah, prospects aren't too good for that. Yeah, tax cuts. I guess you're not going to pay the bills if you're going to cut taxes. So it looks like this game isn't going to work somehow. Somehow there's just an obvious problem here that doesn't need complex explanation. Way too many IOUs, way too few productive workers. Oh, I get it. It's going to fucking fail. Yeah. Yeah, whether the Fed is monetizing or doing it, what the time and day of the failure will be. What we do know is Americans owe to these IOU holders, 20 years of labor at, $1 an hour or $1 a day. I mean, it's basically 20 years of free labor. So when you get home from work, the game will be is you go to work for 3 more hours for the government. And maybe if we all did that in 30 years, we could pay off all the IOU holders. We could pay off the credit card debt, both federal and personal, and stock market created. Because yes, we must preserve the integrity of the fake market that is the stock market, the 40-to-1 evaluations. So anyway, just all preposterous. So let's argue nuance, ignore the fucking plague-infested elephant in the room, and, continue the human preposterosity of always taking their eye off the ball and looking at the hooters in the stand. I mean, we're just never going to pay attention, never going to do anything to fuck right, because nobody can have a rational conversation. And then when you find somebody smart enough to actually do it, what do? They post videos where they have you repeat the same shit 18 times. Why? Yeah. Why? Why do I breathe? Why the fuck? I just stop. Stop. There, I'm done. I'm just going to stay here until I cease. Alright, it's over. Calgon, take me away. Oh, that's it. I'll take a bath. That'll make it all okay. Oh, my back. I'm really in tough shape. I hate getting old. I hate everything about this shithole. You people are such a pain to my conscious projection. The projection of my consciousness finds you painful. You fucking obtuse, loony, fucking ticks. Yeah, the other word for parasite. Anyway, till next time and such. I'm home. Home sweet home. Cabbage, sweet cabbage. Yay! Elf. Oh, the elf gave up too. He just said, fuck it. I'm just gonna lie here and die, Gary. Antidepressants. I'm really down. Really, really down. Oh, it's okay, Elfie. Oh, come on. Just buck up there, pal. Yeah, you've invested. You might as well hang in there. All right, Mary. Okay, there. Solved the problem. Yay for me. Till next time and such. My finger's too frozen. It's a little cold. But yeah, the weather's just been so good. A little cold is, inevitable.